Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited to have this gentleman on because not only is he's probably one of the sharpest dressed men in television today, he probably has one of the best smiles in television, but he most certainly has one of the most remarkable stories in television as far as his own personal history goes. And so I'm excited to dive into all those things. But my good friend, Mr. Chris Schauble, has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, brother.
Brian, thank you, man. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris is a news anchor reporter for a very well-known report news agency here in Southern California, KTLA. He's good friends with obviously Henry DiCarlo, who's been on my show as well. And actually, I didn't address this with you, Chris, but I had Sam Rubin on a couple years ago as
Oh,
well.
oh,
So
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
he was remarkable, and I was blessed to have gotten to know him a little bit and hear kind of his story and how he's really raised his family and been around his kids and all that. And then also, just the fact that I've gotten to have that opportunity to chat with him, and we'll have that forever. So he is dearly missed. But anyways, thank you very much, man, for being on. I'm really excited to dive into all this. And for my listeners, viewers who may not know who you are, let's dive into a little bit of back history of Chris and find out kind of how you grew up, how you got into news broadcasting and all that stuff. Was that something that you wanted to do? And then obviously, he is a dad of two, not
Yeah.
one, two sets of twin girls. So let's hear about that as well, because this is a dad podcast. So I want to hear about your family.
Yeah. What's funny about that is whenever I do a speaking engagement and I introduce myself and I talk about, I'm a news guy and, I've got some Emmys, I've got some golden mics, and then I go, oh, and I also have two sets of twin girls. The audience always goes, oh,
Right.
oh, my, and it's my normal, like other people have two. I had four. My wife and I had four, and we've been married for 30 years, and we always knew we wanted kids, but we realized probably about 7 or 8 years into our marriage that we needed some help. So we went through in vitro fertilization for our first set of twins, and it was such a very deliberate experience. We just didn't think that we would have children again without help or something like that. And 2 years later, she was pregnant again, naturally, no drugs, no nothing. And so that was how we got two sets of twin girls. But how I grew up, and we can certainly circle back to the fatherhood thing, because I love what you do. I love that you
Thank you.
celebrate dads. And I think the sharing of knowledge is just so important for all of us, because I do believe that, unity as a community and in our country, I just think that there's way more good than there is bad, but it doesn't
Mhm.
always get celebrated. So I love what you do.
Thank you.
But so for me, I was adopted in South Florida, or pretty much South Florida, in the Tampa St. Pete area.
Mhm.
I was born in 1970, adopted, well, technically put in my mom's foster care at 3, and then my mom and dad adopted me at 1 when I was 1 year old, and this is in the Tampa St. Pete area. I grew up in the Panhandle of Florida, in the Valparaiso / Fort Walton Beach area, until I was about 10. And then we moved to, my dad retired. My mom was offered an assistantship to get her PhD at the University of Colorado. So we moved to Boulder, Colorado. Finished growing up in Boulder, Colorado. Went to Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, where I studied broadcast journalism, because TV news, I didn't realize it until a professor in college kind of pointed it out to me that I would be good at it. But I used to watch TV news as like my favorite show, and I didn't even realize it until I got to college, and a professor kind of pointed out that I was kind of good at it. And one of the things that really mattered most to me was being able to turn something that I enjoyed into a profession. And so, anyway, so that's what I did. It was my favorite TV show growing up. We would sit around 5 o'clock when my dad got home, 5:30, and we'd watch the evening news. And so, anyway, that became a profession. And then I bounced around, which is the typical thing most news people do. They keep working their way up to bigger and bigger markets. So, the first market was Traverse City, Michigan. Second market was Mobile, Alabama, where I met and married my wife. Third market was Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I hate to bore you with details, but just so you know. And then after that, it was Birmingham, Alabama, as a main anchor, Denver as a reporter, and then Los Angeles for the past 23 years as an anchor reporter. 10 at KNBC, and then the last 13 and a half here at KTLA, and it's been a great journey. My daughters were all born right here in Southern California. They were born at Huntington Memorial in Pasadena, and that's my backstory.
And you, before we started recording, you said that two of your daughters are now out of college,
Right.
and the other two are in college. Where are they at in their years of college as far as the second set?
Well, the older set, we'll talk about the older set and then I'll get to the second set. The older set, one of them went to UCLA. She ran track at UCLA and studied public affairs. And now she is I'm proud to say she's a weather woman,
Oh, cool.
getting her meteorology certification. She works in Joplin, Missouri, so a very small city, but that's where you're supposed to cut your teeth. So she's a weather woman in Joplin, Missouri, and maybe, who knows, 6 to 8 years from now, she'll be in Los Angeles, which would be super cool to work with your daughter, kind of like LeBron and Bronny James, that
Right.
kind of thing. That would be pretty cool. But and then interestingly, my wife is a human resources manager, and my other older daughter, she is a HR professional as well. So kind of the older ones kind of followed their parents' line of work. So that's kind of cool. And the younger ones, one of them, and she went to San Diego State, the other older twin. The younger ones go to UC at Santa Barbara, and she's pre-law, one of the younger ones. And the other one graduated from FIDM in fashion, but is finishing her 4-year degree through the ASU extension there in downtown. And she lives in downtown Los Angeles, and she already works for the Way beauty product company. So
That's
they're
awesome.
all very different, but I would say very highly motivated individuals.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's really a testament to you and your wife. The fact that your two oldest are kind of following in their parents' footsteps, your two youngest are kind of going off and doing their own little thing, but it sounds like they
Yep.
got their head on their shoulders the right way, and they're driven and passionate about what they want to do, and that's awesome. So good for them. I have two boys. I only have two boys, I should say, and they're 25 and 22, and both of them are out of college. Both of them are working their careers. They're both in sales, and my older son lives in Arizona. My younger son actually just graduated a few months ago from college, so he's still home saving up money, trying to do that whole thing before he can move. It's expensive here in Southern California to live. That's why my
It's
older
so
son lives in
true.
Arizona.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
the one in Joplin, obviously she's out of the house, but the other older one is still in the house doing exactly what you said, saving her money.
yeah.
And our deal is, as long as you're saving, we will not make you pay rent, because that's all I do is give it. Some parents take the rent and then give it back, which is a fine model. I trust her to keep it and save it, and when she's ready, she plans to move out, which should be within the next 6 months. So
All
I
right.
like how you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, my older son, it's funny. He did that for a couple years where he got out of college. He was working already before he even graduated. He was working at a company and then got out. He's continued with that company. He'd moved on to two other companies since then. But so he's been out like 3, 4 years, but he just moved to Arizona earlier this year. So he had been home for like 3 years, just socking money away. And to where he had well over 6 figures saved in the bank for a down payment on a house, those kinds of things. But then
Wow.
the market is just crazy. He just can't afford to live
Yeah.
here. So he's living with a buddy, and they're renting a place in Arizona. He's looking to buy pretty soon. But it's funny you mentioned Greenville, because my wife and I hopefully someday will move to Greenville, South Carolina, because we love it there. We just
The
visited there.
upstate.
Yeah,
Yeah, the upstate.
we just visited there a couple months ago. I was in the Marine Corps, and my buddy, one of my good friends in the Marines, lives there and is from there. And so we went to visit them, and just fell in love. And my older son in Arizona said, "If you guys move there, I can afford to buy there. I will
Yeah.
do that."
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
anyways, so yeah, my younger son's saving money right now, and hopefully we'll be out of the house in the next year or so. But I'm like you. If you guys need to stay here and save some money, that's fine. I'm not going to have you sitting here at 30, 35 years old
Right.
living in my house. But
Right.
if you need to, for the interim period, need to save some money before you can move out on your own, that's perfectly fine. And we will support that decision. So
And I
good for
think
you.
what's interesting about that is that America is one of the few countries, and I don't think it's a bad thing, where we kind of push people out of the nest right away,
Mhm.
or tend to, or that's the goal. And a lot of other countries, people live with their families longer. As a matter of fact, most other countries, they live with their families longer. And so as long as it's not just like you alluded to, as long as you're not freeloading, as long
Right.
as there's a purpose behind it, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Well, I want to dive into kind of your you kind of talked about it earlier about your back history. I mean, you
Sure.
were remarkable story for those before we dive into it. For those that have not maybe know who he is or have seen kind of his backstory, but he's got some YouTube videos and stuff that are out there that talk about his adoption and finding his birth parents and all that kind of stuff. It's really a remarkable story. And just a phenomenal journey that you went on, not only for you individually, but also for
Right.
your wife and your kids for that matter. Your
Yes.
daughters got to witness the whole thing. So you went into the adoption system at essentially 3 months old,
Yeah. Yeah.
from your biological mom, and you spent a year or so, almost a year or so in the adoption system, and then were adopted by your what you refer to as your parents, which is
Yes.
awesome.
Absolutely.
And no, for you, I know one of the biggest things that popped up for me when I kind of rewatched this video, because I remember you guys showing it on KTLA, but I rewatched it just kind of for the purposes of this interview. But you have essentially grown up in a home where you're adopted, but you're the only Black child in an all white home, and where your parents
Yes.
are white, your siblings are white.
Yes.
For you as a young child, I know that had to be kind of unsettling, maybe
Well, here's
confusing.
the thing. Yeah,
How,
when you're a kid, you don't know any better. You just
right,
know that you're different because they didn't. I mean, they didn't. They obviously couldn't hide the fact that I was adopted. So they
right.
always knew I was adopted since my very first memory of the whole situation. But they never. The thing about it is they never treated me differently than their
Mm,
biological children. Not once. And growing up partly in the South, there was, sometimes we'd come across some racial stuff, and my dad was very protective of that kind of stuff. And,
that's awesome.
negative words regarding race weren't spoken in my house. And so it just, it's just a testament to the people that they are. My dad is originally from the state of Washington. My mom is originally from the Boston area. And they met when my mom was teaching a class at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and my dad was continuing his education. He was a physicist. He used to design things for he worked in the civil service. He used to design things to test weapons for the military. Very smart man. And so John Schauble, just a great man in my opinion. And so the way we were raised is that all people, it's cliche. People don't think you mean it when they say it, that all people are equal. And here's the thing, it's not that you don't see color, it's that you see color and you appreciate it, and then you embrace it, and then okay, let's go be friends. And so the house that I grew up in, that's why when people say this group is this way or this group is this way, that's just ludicrous. It's so patently untrue because I've lived it. I've
Mhm.
just lived it. I know, and I have my wife is African American. My children are all African American. So, I don't know how to put it other than I feel blessed to have been adopted by the family that I was adopted by, and the way they raised me and put me through college and always supported me when I needed, and gave me certain ideals that I take forward with me even today. And for example, I appreciated when you talked about my daughters and the fact that they all four uh, are or have gone to college, and that's not by accident, because the way I was raised in our house,
Mhm.
you're going to college. It's
Right.
not a matter of if, it's a matter of where. And it can be. And by the way, I'm not saying college is right for everybody. I'm just saying that if that's the direction you want to go in, and in our house, that's what we were encouraged to do. We had all of that support. Now, if I had come to them and said, "Hey, I think I want to do trade school instead," knowing my parents, they would have happily paid for trade school. So that's the values that they instilled in me, and with my daughters, is that it's not if you're going to college, it's where you're going to college. So that part was always a given, and
Mhm.
that's how they learned to find their own way. And also, one of the things that I think that can't be understated enough is all four of my daughters were also athletes. And I think that team sports plays a huge role.
Mhm.
And let me just say, you can also get some of the same benefits, if not identical benefits, from other things, whether it's band or chess club or whatever you're into. but you need to be into something.
Yeah.
And for my daughters, it was four, they were all four of them were into different sports. One was a runner, one was a soccer player, one was a golfer, and then the other one was a volleyball player. But they all were varsity athletes in high school. We live in the Santa Clarita area. They all went to West Ranch. They all are on a banner, a league title banner of one kind or another. And that's just, something that they grew up doing sports, and being a morning anchor in Los Angeles allowed me to be super dad.
That's
I
awesome.
was the one who handled pickups in the afternoon, coached some of their teams, as obviously when they got older, that had to stop because you get more specialized and real coaches have to do it. But the point is, I just think there were certain things that my parents instilled with me, and growing up the way I did, being adopted, that were passed down. And the same with
Mhm.
my wife. Her parents were both educators, and so education was just big. And when you get it coming from both parents, I think that really rubs off. So yes, my the family dynamic is just special. My dad has passed away, but my mom is still with us. Unfortunately, she's in memory care now. So we did move her from Colorado to California, so I get to see her more. And my brother, who is a professor at UCLA, also helps in that regard. So we wanted her closer in order to be with her. But the way I was raised, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Close to my family. We don't all live super close, but it's worked out great. And you mentioned this about 10 years ago in 2014. I was able to, with the help of the station, locate my biological families, both on my father and my mother's side, and learn how
Mhm.
they met. My mother was, English Italian American. My
Mhm.
father was African American. They fell in love in the late 60s. I was born in 1970. He was a raging alcoholic.
Hmm.
So she told him, "You aren't fit to raise this child." So she gave me up for adoption. And ironically, not maybe unironically, like 2 years later, they would end up getting married, not having any more kids. And he stayed an alcoholic. And it was an
Mhm.
abusive relationship until he died in the mid 80s. I would have been in high school. So I wasn't even of the mind to think to find them back then.
Mhm.
So I think when I started looking for them, I was 40, I guess. No,
Mhm.
excuse me, 44 when I started
Yeah.
looking back. And so my logic was, I was settled in my life. I was who I was going to become for the most part. I mean, we're always growing and evolving, but I wasn't threatened by anything. I didn't need to find them for medical reasons, although that is a very valid and big reason for finding your biological parents. So it just all made sense. So I went to the station, our management here, and we were talking about what if we did a story on me finding my biological parents. And with the help of the station and them providing some financial resources, they flew me to Florida to meet my dad. Once we, located everybody, flew me to Florida to meet my dad's side. He had passed away in the mid 80s, as I mentioned, but from cancer. But my mom was still alive in Texas, and that was an incredible reunion. And she would later pass away 2 years later from
Mhm.
when I first met her. So I feel, again, very blessed to have met her before she passed away. So that's kind of like my story and how I grew up, who I was raised by, and then being able to find my bio parents was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think it is a great story, and I really loved that video of you walking into the room to meet your mom for the first time, and the look on her face. It was almost, it was priceless because that look was, there you are, you've always been here. It was like you guys had never skipped a beat, and the way you guys connected immediately and the things that you guys talked about right off the. I mean, it was beautiful. It was really, really, really touching. And for you, someone that's going to go through this journey, it's got to be hard. I mean, I'm sure that
Yeah.
you did put a lot of thought behind it, maybe some prayer behind it. But how about you and Katrina when you were talking to her about possibly going on this journey and how
Hmm.
that would evolve as parents for your own daughters? How did that conversation happen between not only you and Katrina, but also the well, six of you, right?
Yeah, well, for everyone was very supportive, and let me also say my adoptive parents, my mom and dad. My dad was deceased, but my mom was like, What took you so long?" I felt like you always should have gone on this journey whenever you got to a certain age. So she was incredibly supportive. But my wife was like, yeah, you should do this. This is something that is a piece of your life puzzle. And so she was incredibly supportive from the jump. The kids were excited about it. And for me, it was, again, I was in a place in my life where I wasn't threatened by whatever the outcome was going to be. I was
Mhm.
prepared, and I had been spoken to and with about, this person, before we even actually found her, the possibility of her not wanting to be found was out there. And then if her, was she even alive?
Right.
How would the rest of the family receive you? All of those things. But the warmth and love. And when she told me, and we both started crying immediately, and I almost get teary-eyed thinking about it. But when when we were talking in those first few minutes, she said that my prayer was to meet you before I left this earth. And I was
Mhm.
just, oh, that ripped my heart out. Because if I hadn't taken those steps, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
And at some point I probably would have, and then it would have been too late. So you were right. Those first few minutes were so emotional and wonderful. And I think the feeling that she felt was, I did the right thing.
Right.
You know what? I even talked to her about that. I asked her, what would my life have been like? And she said it would have been very difficult. You would have, grown up in the ghetto. That's her words, not mine. You would have grown up in the ghetto, and the only way out would have been to join the military, which there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with. It's admirable. But that, imagine if that's how she viewed my dad was my biological dad was by the way, my adoptive dad, my dad was an Air Force veteran, and my biological dad was an Army veteran. And I still have one of the things that my biological mom gave me. Her name is Virginia, and his name was John Charles Robinson, my bio parents, and my name would have been Mark Robinson. So
Mm.
before it got changed to Chris Schauble. But one of the things that really stuck with me was just how much it meant to her that she did the right thing, and she could see it, and she knew when I walked in that room that that decision changed my life for the better. And that's
Mm.
just an amazing thing to see her feel, and for me to know. And yeah, that was a beautiful reunion.
Yeah. And that message that it probably sent to your own daughters to say, hey, things happen where as parents, we go through these challenges where we have to make really, really tough decisions. And one of those decisions might be giving my child up for adoption. But the
Yes.
fact that you're doing it for a specific reason to better that child's life, it's not a bad thing. Do I think it's great that people give their kids up for adoption? No. But
Right.
in certain circumstances, when it's necessary, like it sounded like for your mom, it was necessary that she do this because she knew that she was going to be raising a child in very tough circumstance or a very tough situation or life, and she didn't want that for you. And so it was a blessing.
Absolutely. And she told me some pretty heartbreaking stories because my dad had PTSD. She said that he would come home, drink a bottle of liquor, and then count pennies out of he didn't have a piggy bank. He had an old liquor bottle that he would put pennies in, and he would dump them out, and he would count every one. And if he felt like one was missing, he would become abusive toward her.
Mm.
And that's the kind of environment that I would have grown up in, she told me. And I just, I can't imagine a more polar opposite way of growing up than how I
Mm.
actually grew up in a loving household with a lot of support, a goal oriented lifestyle where, how do you want to live? How do you want to, what do you want to achieve? All that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I truly feel like she realized, if she could have, she didn't do it. She could have patted herself on the back and said, "Good job, Virginia. You really, really did the right thing." And she did, she really, really did.
Yeah, you did it for her. You did it for her, certainly. Just in who you are today. That's how you did it. So
Yeah,
I,
you're
I'm I
kind,
am
man.
curious. I am curious. Did your both your moms, did they get an opportunity to meet?
You know what? That's a great question, and they never did. And that's only
Uh,
because I didn't find out until a little bit too late in the game that Virginia was as sick as she was,
mm,
and so yeah, that never happened. And I think it would have been a really fun meeting to arrange. It would have been a lot to make happen because Virginia was kind of immobile and stuff like that. So my mom would have had to fly down, which wouldn't have been a problem, but it wasn't a priority given what she was dealing with. So I don't know. That's a great question. And the answer is no, they never met. And the why is just because I didn't make it a big enough of a priority. And there's certain regrets I have, but that's not one of them.
Yeah,
That's
of
not one of
course. Of course. Well, that's awesome. And for your mom, for her, when you shared with her, hey, I've found my biological mother, how did that interaction happen? I mean, what was her reaction to that? You said she was very supportive, so
Well, she was supportive because I had already told her we were going to look. And then as I mentioned, her response was, "What took you so long?" And then she went into her office/library and found every piece of documentation regarding my adoption that she could find. And the most important thing that she found was a letter from to the attorney from her and my dad asking for the representation, and here are the facts and blah blah blah. We want to adopt this child. And it's a really cool letter, and I still have it
That's cool.
somewhere. If you ask me where it is, I'd have to go digging through some boxes and stuff like that. But it was a pretty cool letter, basically saying we want to adopt this child. We need you to represent us. So I called that attorney's office when I was in the initial stages, asking for more information. And the guy had retired, and his son was running the law practice. And the son was like, "Look, we don't even keep these documents anymore. This goes back to 1970. You're talking about 44 years ago. We
Right.
don't even have, I don't even think he had microfiche or anything like that to go look at stuff on." So he was like, "We really can't help you, but we wish you luck." Yeah, my mom, again, my dad had passed by this point, but my mom was super supportive. And through every step of the journey, didn't really, she wasn't threatened or anything, but she didn't ask to meet Virginia. I just think she felt it was my deal and let me have it. And that's kind of the way it all worked out, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I would hope she wouldn't be threatened by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think that for you as a dad, we touched on your adoption journey a little bit, but now you're a father of four beautiful girls. And what was that? Let me ask you this. Why was fatherhood important to you? Was it because of how you were raised? Was it because of the fact that you knew you were adopted? Was it both of those things? Why was fatherhood so important to you?
Great question. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't know if because I was a black kid in a white family that I always knew I was loved, but I didn't feel like the puzzle fit quite perfectly. And so I mean, I'm just self-psychoanalyzing myself, like why? Because my mom said, my mom was like, by 25, you're going to be married. I'm like, no way. I was married at 24. And we've been married now for 30 years. And so I just think that I wanted a family of my own. And I think that, so, when we realized that it was going to be a little more difficult to start that family and we went through the IVF process and all of that, we were so delighted that it worked and we got our first set of twins and, just loved them up so much. And then, again, thinking that we needed to go through processes and procedures in order to have children, just living our best life, not worrying about that. And for her to get pregnant again a little more than 2 years later was amazing. So I think that, yes, I think because of how I grew up, I always knew that I wanted my own family, and I think that was a really big part of why I wasn't intimidated by having four, because you're never given, I always, when my wife was, pregnant, I said, well, God never gives you more than you can handle.
Right.
Right. So I said that to her and took her to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle on Lake in Pasadena and
Know
said, look,
exactly where it's at.
it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry too much about it. It's gonna and sure enough, I'll tell anyone there's a lot of financial sacrifices that come with raising four daughters and especially sending four daughters to college and all that kind of stuff. But for me, my trip to Tahiti was watching my daughters compete in anything. It was my favorite. It was like a sunset in Hawaii to me. Watching my daughters compete, watching them do that and just be the best young people they could be brought me so much joy. And even now, and I know a lot of your friends, family, and viewers can relate. A lot of my best friends are fellow adults I met when our kids were on the same teams
Mhm.
together and stuff like that. And so it's just kind of cool that having those blessings led to other blessings like the friendships that my wife and I enjoy so much. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that was a very accurate question in that how I was raised and the fact that I was adopted probably led to this strong desire to have my own family and build it and be the best that I can be, and maybe fill in some gaps that I didn't have and stuff like that. And so, and they always know I'll be there for them.
Yeah.
And this, big little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And
Right.
so, now it's, when they need something, it tends to be more of a bigger deal. So
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I think for me, it was I grew up in a family that, my parents still married to this day over 50 years. My parents were alcoholics. I grew up in an alcoholic family, so addiction's a big issue in my family. However, my parents to this day, like I said, still are together. They just were not super involved in my life growing up as a kid. I played sports. I got good grades in school mainly because I was afraid of my dad. So I got good grades in school. He wasn't abusive to me or anything like that. He was intimidating. So I always made sure I got good grades in school. They did not care if I went to college or not because they didn't go to college. My dad barely graduated high school. So that wasn't a priority when I got out of high school. But I knew because of the fact that I played all these sports, I would go to practices or games with my friends' parents because my parents weren't there. I can count on one hand how many games they actually came to growing up in my life. I knew at very young age that when I did have a family and I had kids, I wanted to be as involved as possible. And so for my two boys, we were like you guys. We said, listen, we don't care if it's band, we don't care if it's drama, we don't care if it's sports. You're going to do something outside of school, extracurricular, because that's important for your development. Where that's important to us, and that should be important to you. My boys just gravitated towards sports. So from the ages of 4 all the way up through high school, I coached every single one of their teams. Baseball,
Nice.
football, basketball, all the way up until my younger son, even when he graduated high school, went off and played college basketball. I was still coaching at the high school level for another couple years. And the cool thing about our journey, my younger son and I, is that we at the school that they went to a Christian high school in Upland. The basketball team that I coached for, were able to get that team to the CIF championship. It was the first time in the
Nice.
school's 100-year history that the boys basketball team had made it to the CIF championship, and we won. So now
Oh,
my son and I both have these Super Bowl size CIF
yep.
rings that we both share as coach and player,
Yep.
that we will have that memory forever. And it's awesome. But I say that because that part of my life was so important to me to be actively involved in my boys because I didn't have that as a child growing up. My parents were involved, but they just weren't super active. And I wanted to make sure my boys didn't have that didn't grow up that same way. And so now looking back when I started this podcast almost 5 years ago, my younger son was about to graduate high school. And I thought my dad journey has ended. Like my older son at the time was in college. My younger son was about to go to college. And I thought, I got depressed over it, Chris. I was like, what
Yeah.
am I supposed to do? My dad journey has come to an end. And my wife said, your dad journey is never going to come to an end. We're always going to be parents. But I had a couple of my family members said, you should really help other dads now. That should be your calling. You should really help other dads. And so that's kind of where it's led me to this podcast and doing this show. It's because I'm hoping that we can inspire other dads out there that might be struggling with something or maybe kind of confused on what their journey is as a dad, to really inspire them to say, hey, God has blessed you with these children in your life,
Yes.
and you want to
Yes.
raise them up to be as best as they can be. And now here you have an opportunity to do that. And that's the way I saw it growing up. And now my boys, like your daughters, I'm sure my boys are two of my best friends. And
Yep.
it's because of how we raise them. and how active
It's
you are.
exactly right. And I don't want to make anyone whose kids are not in team sports or sports feel bad, because that's
Right.
not what I'm trying to do. But I just can't overstate the impact that, maybe having a coach yell at you, but it's not personal, or getting along with someone on the team you don't like, or having those amazing experiences like you and your son had when you win something like that, at the time. You're right, that's like the Super Bowl, man. That's like that's the biggest thing on the planet, and that's a big deal. I won a state championship in Colorado in football. I'm meeting those friends this Friday. I'm flying
Oh,
back to
cool.
Denver, and we're all getting together for the big rivalry game, which we do about every 10 years or so. So it's a bit. I'm going to wear my Letterman jacket, which
Oh,
actually
that's
still
awesome.
fits. I'm very proud of that. But my point is, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate what you're talking about. And I think the biggest thing, and this is where it goes beyond whether it's sports or not, is that, how do you know if you're being a good parent or not? Well, there's the obvious things, but also just be involved. It's the
Hmm.
trying, it's the effort, it's the never giving up. It's the okay, I couldn't make this, but I'm darn sure going to make this next thing. And if I have to change shifts with somebody so that I can get there for that, I mean, that matters. That kind of, showing up is such a big part of it. And that's why I love the fact that I'm on, in the morning at KTLA's, because I got to be super dad. And
Right.
and with four girls, the old joke, a father of dads only has to worry about his son, or sons plural. I got to worry about all of the sons out there, right? So the fact that I was home, they were never in any kind of trouble. They were never bringing anyone over to the house unknown or unannounced or anything like that. I always kind of knew where they were. And so, and most of the time, if it was after, school, they were at a practice of some kind or another later in high school, or I was taking them to a practice. So all of that, I think just being involved is such a big part of being a good dad. And I know not every dad can do that. Some guys are working two jobs, maybe three, and
Hmm.
it's tough. But if you can find part of, maybe you're working three, so someone else in your life can be there for them while you're working those three jobs.
Yeah.
Or I don't have all the answers, but I do know that trying is a lot of it. I
Yeah.
do know that trying to be there and doing your best so that your kid knows that you care, all of that really adds up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, when I think about kids that are, especially, we're just talking about sports, but when they're playing in a sport, I coach a lot of dads too. And one of the things that I tell these guys is, listen, I understand that you think that your main priority is to provide for the family, put a roof over their head, food on the table, clothing on their back, all those kinds of things. And you think that it's necessary for you to work these 60, 80 hours a week in order to do that. But I'm telling you right now, and because you're doing that, you can't be a successful dad. Well, you're wrong.
Right.
You can actually do both. I've done it. Chris has done it. Many dads that I have talked to on the show have done it. You can be successful in your career. You can be successful in owning a business. You can be successful in your endeavors outside of the house, but also be a successful parent. And that does take work. It does take commitment. It does take priority. There are things that you have to put in place in order for you to be that committed parent. But I'm telling you right now, when your child is playing in that game, or when your child's up on that stage performing that instrument, whatever they are doing, and they're looking at that audience, or they're looking up in those stands, they're not looking at all the other people that are in those stands or in the audience. They're looking for their parents. That's who they're looking for. They're looking for you. So if you have to do whatever you need to do to make sacrifices, I was in corporate America. I worked in corporate America when my boys were growing up, and I still coached. And guess what? I showed up at the office at 4 a.m. just so I could leave at 2 o'clock so I could go to the games and go to their practices. I did that on purpose. So I made sure I gave 100% to my company, and I made sure I gave 100% to my family, because you can't do both. It's impossible to have a balanced lifestyle. It's impossible, because when you're trying to live a balanced lifestyle, something is going to be out of place. So when you're giving 100% somewhere, something else is not getting any of your time. So you need to make sure that you're trying to, as much as possible, balance it to where, like I did, where I got up a little bit earlier and got into the office a little bit earlier so I could leave a little bit earlier. I'm telling you that if you're not doing those sorts of things as a parent, to make those extra sacrifices to be there for your kids when they need you, and when to be there like you should be, your kids are going to look for other things, and they're going to turn to other
Amen.
things They're going to look for
Amen.
it could be addictions. Chris obviously
Yeah.
has addiction issues in his family tree. I have it in mine. So they could be addictions. It could be other people. It could be other adults. It could be online things that are not appropriate. I mean, all those other areas are what they're going to look for
Yeah.
security. And that's because you're not around or you're not around as much. And so that's something that you should change.
One of the quotes that I heard that really stuck with me, and forgive me because I don't know who said it, is you're juggling. And the important thing to remember is some of the balls that you're juggling are glass and will break and shatter, and
Mhm.
some are plastic and will just bounce. The trick is realizing which priorities in your life are glass balls that will shatter if you don't pay the right attention, and which ones are just plastic and they can fall. And I thought that that was a really good analogy about juggling your life's priorities. And
Yeah.
so to me, a kid is a glass ball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, listen, your daughters now are I mean, they're adults and they can make their decisions however they see fit. And you as a dad are still their dad. You as a dad
Yep.
are still there to give them support, but you're not there to make decisions for them.
No.
And as parents, our roles change as our kids grow up. Our roles change. And when our kids are adults, my boys, like I said, are two of my best friends, but they still come to me for advice because they're making adult decisions now and they need my advice. And I don't have to force my advice on them. I don't have to force my opinion on them. I could say, listen, son, this is what I think you should do based on my experience in this area. This is what I think you should do. This is the direction I think you should go. You make that decision however you see fit. And then if they choose to go that other direction and not take my advice, that's fine with me. I don't have hurt feelings over it because I know that they
Hmm.
understand that whatever decision they make, they have to live with. And
Yep.
all I did was provide that guidance and that support and that advice. So for you as a dad, you're doing that right now for your daughters.
And you know what's interesting is my dad passed away in 2011, March of 2011, and I when I was younger, I thought he was the smartest, wisest guy in the world. Then you realize, well, maybe dad doesn't know everything, and maybe he's not the smartest guy in the world, maybe not the wisest guy in the world. But saying that, I still think he was a pretty smart guy. And even though he passed away in 2011, to this day, if I think about something, I can almost hear his voice, like in his voice, in my head, saying, like I can almost know what his thought would be, what his answer would be if I asked him a question. And see that's just a special thing. And I hope that one day, if my daughters, and I'm not trying to be morbid or anything, but I'm just hoping that one day, my daughters will always realize that they can hear my voice and they can hear my thoughts and understand how they were raised and know that. And by the way, I do believe this. I believe that my dad and my wife's dad were believers, and they were such good men.
Mhm.
And I do believe that their blessings have flowed. I get emotional thinking about it, flowed even not just to me and my wife, but to our kids.
Of course.
Like they were so good in their life and how they lived it, and they were so good to other people, that I do believe there's a protection that kind of trickles down. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but they were, my wife's father and my dad were just the best. They were just
Mm.
really good, solid men. They both served. They both, not that that's the definition of a good man necessarily, but I'm just saying they just old fashioned, good values that translate into the modern world to this day. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's great. Um, Chris, before I let you go here, I just want to ask you one last thing, and if there's anything out there that you want to share with dads or maybe moms too, because this, it is a dad podcast,
Yeah.
but I've had moms on my show as well. So for parents in general, if there's anything you want to share about adoption or maybe about, we talked about being involved in our kids' lives, what would that message be to parents out there today?
Well, first of all, on the adoption thing, if that's what's in your heart, whether to adopt a child or if there are a set of circumstances that are forcing you or someone in your life to give up a child, just know that I know that doesn't come. That decision is not an easy one to make,
Mhm.
but I do realize, and I've lived it, that you will change that child's life for the better, whether you adopt or whether, because there's so many great families out there who cannot have children, who are looking to adopt children. So
Mhm.
so there are numerous agencies. Forget the money part of it. Just to put a healthy child in a loving home. I am
Mhm.
pro adoption as someone who has been adopted, and just know that. So just know that as tough as the decision is, you're doing it for the right reason. In terms of like just fatherhood, be present, man. Just be present. Just, and I tell my daughters, I grew up. My dad had a heart attack my senior year of college, and
Mm.
he came from one of these German, really, tight emotionally kind of families, and so they like I grew up and they never really said they showed they love us, but they never said I love you, which sounds
Right.
bananas, right? But so I made sure that when he had that heart attack my senior year and I had to cut off my spring break and rush home and all that kind of stuff, that I was like the first one ever in our, and we're all gathered around his hospital bed and I said I love you. It like there was this ice that just broke, and then we all
Yeah.
started saying it, right? And so I made sure growing up, my girls every day they know I love them, and I say it, or I text it, or there's some communication where they know that I love them. And so I just think that that would be my only message to fellow dads out there. Forget the macho stuff. They'll pick up on it. Being a man, if you're a strong man, and you're talking to the guy who was the ridiculed, earthquake, face guy, like that. I've caught more heat than anybody for being a wimp, right? But the bottom line is strong men don't fear being weak in the right moments. So just know that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's awesome. And the earthquake reference is classic. I mean, we could talk about that all day long.
Yeah,
Uh, but anyways, listen, Chris, I am blessed that you have been on this show, man. I thank you so much for not only sharing your journey through KTLA and the videos that you've put out, but also, sharing your journey on my show here. And hopefully if there are parents out there that are inspired by what Chris has done in his life, or maybe you're looking to adopt or possibly have an adoption issue where you have to face yourself, make sure you check out the story. And you can even reach out to Chris on KTLA too if you have questions or something like that. I'm sure that he would be more than happy to respond to you. But Chris, thank you so much, man,
absolutely.
for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to continuing this friendship, my brother.
Absolutely, Brian. You're the best, man. Thank you for having me on, and good luck to all the fellow dads out there.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, it's been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend, Mr. Chris Schauble, for being on the show. And listen, if you want to check out his journey, I'll make sure that I'll have the show notes, the links in the show notes below that you can check out and watch some of the videos that he's put together, the YouTube video that he put together where he was really looking for his biological parents. But make sure that you are always subscribed to my show so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, dad up.